Hey everybody, here for our next edition of Wonderful Words. And I'm so moved about this one because, as you can see, I'm here with Michael Neill. Oh, whose words I read Super Coach when I was in Amsterdam years and years and years ago, and already that was just so fresh and so startling. And then to read The Inside Out Revolution, which just, oh my God, just turns everything upside down, inside out. And yeah, so I've been on a long journey with this man and through Super Coach and then an incredible writing workshop with Steve Chandler. And so I feel like words brought me into your orbit and continue to do so. And the words that I've chosen is particularly, when I remember reading them and just thinking, that's like everything, that's the entirety of life summed up in one sentence. And I'll read them, Michael, if that's okay, and then
Yeah,
and then
please.
we'll chat about them. So I'm just
I want. I was no, but I want to say one thing. It's like what the joy in what I do is when you see somebody light up, like they get it, they get something. And I remember a conversation we had where you were sitting there stunned, and we talked about doing some work together or something. But mostly, I was just sitting there going, "Oh, you're lit." And that's,
yeah,
for me is that's part of the joy of this whole conversation.
yeah, and
Yeah.
so many times before I even met you through what you'd written. That's just it's incredible, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so I'll read these words out. Oh, oh, hi, lovely. Sorry, I'm just recording a second. Oh, yeah, sorry, darling. Um, when our thoughts look real, we live in a world of suffering. When they look subjective, we live in a world of choice. When they look arbitrary, we live in a world of possibility. And when we see them as illusory, we wake up inside a world of dreams. Oh, I just love it. It's everything. It's like our whole journey as humans, isn't it?
It's funny because I remember, you must know as a writer that you write stuff and you sometimes go back and go, who wrote that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And but what I remember I was trying to do is I was trying to encapsulate the whole, everything that I've seen about how life works in a sentence for the section called In a Nutshell.
Yeah.
And it was, so there was that did come out of a deliberate attempt to, well, if you could say all of this. Now I've tried 1,000 more times, and some people like some of the other iterations, but that is, I'm sort of, it's also my own personal journey.
Yeah.
You know,
I was going to ask if it was that. Yeah. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
it's for me. I suffered. I lived in a world of suffering because everything I thought was real, and I thought some really out there things about people coming to get me, and all sorts of things that have lovely labels.
Hmm.
But as long as what was going on in here looked mostly real, I mean, even I knew some of it wasn't, but as long as it looked mostly real, I was at the mercy of it. It was, it was like, do you remember the movie The Sting?
Yeah.
So essentially what they do, and I'm going to ruin the movie for everyone now. So it's a classic.
Spoiler
Stop,
alert.
go watch it, and come back. It was great. But they set up a sting because the way they would report horse races was somebody at the track would use the telegraph machine and say what was happening, and somebody in the betting place would write down the race and read it out, like read out the telegraph as if it was really happening. And everybody in the room assumed that what was being read out was what was happening at the race. And they took advantage of that dissonance to, rip these guys off. But that's us. Like, we are dependent on the reporter. And we just, and he's an unreliable, or she's an unreliable narrator. And I didn't know that. So
Yeah.
that world of suffering is where I spent the first 20 years or so of my life. And then I had the realization I talk about too much, or just watch Why Aren't We Awesomer? You'll get it. But where I really did realize that 7 years of suicidal ideation didn't mean I wanted to kill myself. It was just a suicide thought.
Mm.
That popped me out of the world of suffering, but it popped me into the worlds of subjectivity.
Yeah.
It popped me into a world where I went, whoa, you think what you think and I think what I think, so you have your experience and I have my experience, and there's the reality, but we're just reporting on reality. And I made a living out of subjective experience for 17 years.
Yeah.
Being an actor, for starters, that's really what you're doing, is you're just swapping your subjective experience for a character's subjective experience. But then as an NLP teacher, it was the study of the structure of subjective experience. Here, let me change your misinterpretation of reality to a better misinterpretation of reality. Let me give you a more useful lie. And that was the game. And it was better than the world of suffering.
Mm.
And then I remember the day that it dawned on me that subjectivity was an objective truth. Like, I really thought there was
Yeah.
nothing real
Yeah.
in the universe. And then I went, oh, that's insane. It's just most of what I experience
Mm.
is made up. And then I would catch glimpses that the experiencer, was the first thing that got made up. I remember reading a Kindred Spirit, the British magazine. I don't know if it's even around anymore, but they had a feature on Ramesh Balsekar, and he was an Indian guru, disciple of Sri Nitgardaj. He was part of a lineage, but he had been a banker. He'd been a very successful man before he got into spirituality, and he just kept saying, "Oh, there's no free will; it's all preordained. Literally nothing that I am saying, nothing you could say, nothing I do, nothing you could." And it was for about 2.5 pages of this interview, I was just getting wound up, because I was thinking, this is crazy. What's this guy talking about? This is so defeatist. And then somewhere around page 2 3/4, something popped. And it was like, oh. And it was easy, not for me, but because I wasn't there.
Mm.
The way
Mm.
that I thought of
Yeah.
me.
Oh, I love that.
Now, I point out in the book, my wife will point out anytime you ask, I don't live there. But even touching it from time to time informs
Yeah.
everything. It's harder to get lost. I still can do it, but it takes more work than it used to.
Yeah.
And it's proven incredibly liberating and incredibly fun.
Yeah. 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 Oh, Michael. Tell us about the world of dreams. What is that? What does it mean?
For me, I remember interviewing, I've gotten to interview a lot of cool people and meet a lot of cool people. I'm getting old. I've met a lot of people. And I got to interview Don Miguel Ruiz,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
the Four Agreements. And we had an amazing conversation that, unfortunately, the sound quality, we was like in a cave. So the sound quality was terrible, but it was a great conversation from my point of view. And he had a similar enlightenment experience to most enlightenment experiences that one reads about, where suddenly he realized he wasn't,
Mm.
and
Mm.
he was everything, and life as we know it was a dream. And and Sid Banks talks about life as a divine dream suspended between the boundaries of time, space, and matter, which to me is, once you make up time, because you can't put time in a wheelbarrow, you make up space.
Yeah, I love that expression of yours. I always remember that. Can't put it in a
You make
wheelbarrow.
up matter, then then you're then you can have the world as we know it.
Yeah.
And the sort of Don Miguel Ruiz take, whereas most enlightened people, I went, it's just an illusion, it's just a dream, so leave it behind and stay in the reality of your true self, your permanent nature, the diamond essence. Don Miguel Ruiz was like, so what fun it would be to master the art of dreaming.
Mm, mm,
And that for me was like, oh, yeah, it's like, I remember years and years ago learning to lucid dream, like, nighttime dream. And it was really fun.
mm.
It was much more fun than just waking up, which is what I used to do when I was having a nightmare. I punched myself in the dream until I could feel my
Mm,
body again. And that was how I would wake myself up. But if you're in the dream and you know that it's a dream, sometimes you don't have to wake up.
yeah,
And you don't have to have the dream look like anything.
yeah,
You don't need, if you know that you're dreaming, dreaming monsters is actually as interesting as dreaming angels
mm,
after a while.
mm,
You know,
mm,
if you've had enough monsters for them, then it's nice to dream angels. But suddenly there's just so much more freedom and so much less to be afraid of.
yeah,
Um, the Eastern teaching, as I was always presented with it, is that anything that comes and goes is the dream.
yeah,
Anything that neither comes nor goes is reality. Well, you got to have a sort of an infinite timescale for that to make sense. Like this, it seems, is certainly semi-permanent, right? Like the tattoos we used to give our kids, like at King's Fish House. It was like, they lasted a day or two, but they washed off, right? Like, this is going to be around, God willing, for a while. It certainly has been around for a while, but this isn't going to be here at some point. So this must be part of the dream.
mm, mm,
Now, that does not mean that I'm going to throw it in front of an imaginary train and see what happens,
yeah,
right? Because I get that within the world of the dream, the physics of the dream is that's not going to go well.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, I love it. And what would you obviously, I've experienced at first hand how you move or yeah, how you help people move through the different things that you describe in that quote. What would you say? What is it that allows that those realizations to happen? What's going on?
I mean, there's two metaphors come to mind. One is what it looks like from my side, and one is what it kind of feels like, I think, on the other side. So the metaphor from the Kabbalah is that the light of God, Ein Sof, is covered over by the veils of illusion. And I forget if there's 23 or 26 of them, but there's a bunch of them. And so the art of getting closer to God, the art of waking up, is hello, buddy. Is it? No. I've got dogs and cats all over the place. Is simply each time a veil gets removed, the light seems brighter.
Mm,
Now it isn't. It's not brighter. It's not really closer, but it is experientially.
yeah,
And so it's when something that looked real stops looking real. When something that looked solid and true starts looking made up and arbitrary. It's that falling away, that dissolving, that, I often talk about, um, um, loose threads and small fires when people ask me what I do. I look for loose threads on people's reality, on the fabric of their
right,
reality. And I tug on them. And sometimes they tug back, and sometimes they just come off. And sometimes bits of reality unravel because
nice,
it wasn't reality.
yeah, yeah,
And then I look for small fires. I look for Clares lighting up, and I do my best to pour gasoline on them.
yeah,
right? Because then you kind of experience more of that from inside,
Yeah.
more of the reality. And so that's how I look at it to an extent in there. Eh, the other metaphor, though, that I love for what I do is the metaphor of a shaman as a spider. And I think that's Hawaiian in origin, but it might not be. It's the idea that the spider sits in the center of the web, but can easily go anywhere on the web, wherever things are caught. Now, in the spider metaphor, the spider would devour them. I'm not a big devourer, right? So I'm more like kind of undo the stickiness and kind of, invite them to try other bits of the web.
Okay. Yeah.
So to my mind, I don't have a problem. I know there are definitely teachers who kind of seem mad at anybody who's not in the center of the web all the time. And I'm like, maybe they're in the center of the web all the time, so it's different. But for me, it's just like, you are where you are. The world looks like what it looks like. And as long as it looks that way, you
Mm,
cannot do other than you do.
mm, mm.
Like, as long as I think the aliens are trying to read my mind, I am going to try tinfoil or whatever else I can put on my head to prevent them from getting in there. Like,
Yeah.
that is smart. That
Yeah.
is sane behavior. It's just that it's a dream and I don't know it's a dream.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that. And when someone, you've spoken and written about intense suffering, when someone is really in the absolute midst of it,
Mm.
and it all does look real, and there isn't even a chink of light. There's no thread or there's no fire in that moment. It seems completely desolate. How do you work with someone in those times?
Well, I'm a hugger.
Oh, that's so lovely.
So I don't feel the need to use everything as a teaching opportunity. So I'm inclined to just be with someone. We have all been there.
Yeah.
We have different explanations for it, but we've all been there and it sucks, but it passes.
Mm.
I remember this may have happened before I met you, so you may know this story. But I still have a dear friend whose husband had a bad heart attack in his 50s. And seemed like a fit, healthy guy. It was a complete surprise. And she had a young kid with serious medical problems, and their health insurance, which in America is a big deal, um, was dependent on her husband's job. And so she was obviously horrified at, she might be losing her husband, but her mind was also racing to what am I going to do about the kid? What am I going to do about this? And what am I going to do about that? And she asked to talk. And I said, look, let's go to lunch tomorrow. And talk. Well, between that call and lunch, my life blew up. I do not at this point remember how, but like I was just pissy and upset, and I was going to cancel because I thought I'm not going to be any use to her. But something in me was like, don't cancel, go. And so I went, and she was in that place, and she poured her heart out, sobbed, we ate, we sobbed. Well, my great master coach intervention was I then poured out all my shit onto her. And I was just like, oh my God, you think that's bad? I didn't quite do that. But and so we both kind of sat there in the afterglow. and I had as often happens in the afterglow, like as often happens when you settle down, I had just a clear seeing. And I said to her, the only difference between you and me is you think it's still going to look like this tomorrow. And I know there's a really good chance that it won't.
Mm.
And
Mm.
it was funny. She called me later that evening and thanked me, and that had done something for her. We're all in the soup together. There's a beautiful saying, beware the man that casts no shadow.
Yes.
Right? Or it was a Sheldon Kopp book. If you meet the Buddha in the road, kill him.
Yeah, would you say more about that? Because that's come up a few times in different things.
Well, I just think that it's, we want our gurus whiter than white. We want them to not be human. We
Mm,
want them to have transcended the human experience. But we don't even want that, because that implies they still have one. And so both, I think, because people who become gurus often become gurus to escape the human experience,
mm,
and because they kind of know that's what's being projected onto me, so I guess I better play the part. Um, it, it's misleading. And it causes either people to try to fake it till they make it, but they're faking a form that isn't real,
mm, mm.
or it causes people to go through an endless cycle of pedestal knocked off pedestal, pedestal knocked off pedestal, hope disappointment, and it's none of that has anything to do with this.
Mm.
That's all form all the way down.
Yeah.
And so, we all have our shit. That would be the profoundly meaningful way of summing that one up. And it does nobody any good to pretend we don't.
Yeah.
It doesn't help us, and it doesn't help the people that we serve.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Doesn't mean you have to pretend it's shit when it isn't. Say that one too.
Also
Oh
not.
yeah, no, my life's awful too. My third Rolls Royce is in the shop. I mean, it's like come on, you are where you are. Life is what it is, and I know plenty of people with third Rolls Royces who are pretty miserable, and some who aren't. Some who love their life, and I know plenty of people who couldn't buy a car if their life depended on it, who are really happy, and some who are really messed up.
Mm, mm.
But we kind of mix them up
Yeah.
and think the one is indicative of the other.
Yes.
I like my spirituality messy because human beings are messy.
Yeah.
I was talking to my wife about it last night, and we were talking about. I have a pet peeve, a very unenlightened pet peeve, which is people who are as or more messed up than everybody else, but take on the role of, I'm perfect. I've worked through this. And it's like, and I was saying to Nina, look, we're all messed up and we're all God. Like it's, why is that a problem? And she said, it was funny because, she said, well, I'm not messed up. And I mean, look, I have been married 30 plus years for a reason. I mean, normally I would go, no, you don't look fat in that, but it's she does. But 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 there's a little bit of hardened mouth. But I said, babe, and I started listing it off. And she's like, oh God, I am messed up. But it was such a sweet conversation because it wasn't like a big deal. It wasn't like either of us thought we were going to do anything about the way we were messed up. It's just like we're messed up and we're madly in love. We're messed up and we love our lives. That's the human condition.
Yeah.
We're lovable messes. And I don't really think aspiring to be something other than a lovable mess is on the cards. So I don't think it's worth a lot of time.
Yeah. 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 That's so cool. And just maybe one last question because I know I promised you that this would be like a
I'm
20.
actually I'm actually okay, but
Are you? Oh, okay.
yeah, no,
Well,
my
in that case,
my next appointment moved, so
all
we're all
right. Okay. Okay. Good. Well, in that case, can I ask you about? So this is the question that keeps coming to my mind. Of so this world of dreams that we're in,
Hmm.
that is essentially our dream.
Hmm.
It's coming through us. The world is existing in a sense within us. What is going on with the things in that world that really are we would not choose to have in our dream? Violence or poverty or discrimination. Where does change of those things come from, would you say?
I think they're, it's coming to mind. Do you remember the movie Groundhog Day?
Yeah.
where this guy is basically living the same day over and over again. And there's a lot of crap in the day. There's a lot of stuff, cats get stuck in trees and people fall in the snow, and and for the longest time he's hates that he's stuck in the dream, and he wants nothing more than to wake up from it. And then he starts to kind of mess around in it and mess with people and do stuff and amuse himself. And then he tries to just end it all and get out of it by killing himself. He finds out he can't even do that. But where he finally settles is he can make every day better for everyone. He becomes a good Samaritan not to earn points in heaven or to escape the earthly plane or to imitate the Christ, or just because it's like, I'm here, I may as well help. And so for me, that's, to the extent that I see it's a dream, I don't have many preferences. But to the extent that I'm in the dream, I do. And since my preference is more love and harmony and less violence, I do what I can to promote more love and less violence. Now, when I'm scared of the violence, when I'm scared of the poverty, then I may do some of the same things, but it doesn't seem to have the same impact.
Yeah.
It's just another version of violence. I remember Nina and I watching a show when we were living in England, and it was talking about the skinheads and the sort of equivalent of the neo-Nazi party, I guess. And there was this one kid, and he was the most moving thing for me in the documentary, who had been a skinhead and now was an anti-racist. And they were interviewing him, talking about killing those effing blind. And Nina and I both had the exact same experience. It's like, oh, he hasn't changed at all. He's just got a new enemy. The world hasn't changed at all for him. Just switch sides. And the possibility is, first, you wake up a little. You at least wake up to the possibility that it's a dream.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then you can do anything you want inside the dream.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love it. So beautiful.
It's a kind of cool gig, the being human thing. I recommend it to any non-embodied entities that are listening. I don't know if there are any.
Oh, Michael, is there any last thing that you would say about that quote, or anything else that we've been talking about?
The thing that really struck me when I reread the chapter this morning. I wrote it years ago, so I haven't read it for a while. And the only thing is, I just reiterate, it's not worth faking it. Like, I don't want to say you're not going to make it, but it's a description of reality. So there's a reasonable chance that if you keep looking, you'll see more and more. And it doesn't matter about the words. Like, I know it's a funny thing to say for the two of us. We're words people. And you've heard me say, I'm sure, trying to talk about this with words is like trying to point to fire with ice. The closer you get to the truth, the less you've got to point with.
Yeah.
And it's the best I've got.
Yeah.
So screw it. I'm going to keep doing it.
Oh, that's so lovely. I think that's a great place for us to end.
Nice to see you.
Oh, it's so lovely to see you. I'm so grateful for everything that you bring to the world and that you brought to me. So grateful. And thank you for being here today.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah. Have a lovely day, Michael. See you soon.
Bye.
Big love. Bye. Bye.